Why should you keep Beekeeping Records with James Wilkes from Hive Tracks? This is episode 106.
Welcome to the kiwimana Bay. Hi everyone, this week we are talking to James Wilkes from North Carolina in the big old US of A, all about bees and hive tracks. So what is hive tracks? We discuss why keeping records of your inspections is a vital skill and a handy tool. This is episode 106 of our beekeeping podcast.
Yes, indeed it is, and Hive Tracks is a great tool, isn't it?
Very exciting, and you guys might be able to get yourself something, a part of the action.
Yes, because keeping beekeeping inspections records is a great way to see what the trends are in your hives and see what you did right last year and when you added supers. It's awesome, isn't it? Yeah,
it's great. It's a great tool, and it also helps you with inventory, so you know exactly what you've got. And when you talk to James, a lot of this information just is so relevant to helping the beekeeper, and this is any beekeeper.
Yes, indeed. And they've also got a commercial product. I think they're testing it at the moment, or it may possibly be coming out soon. So if you commercial guys want to get involved in this, they have a commercial offering as well.
That's fantastic and so handy. And the only reason we like to talk about this product is because we use it.
Yes, we do. Been inspecting hives and using it. It's great. Reminds you when to inspect the hive next. It's awesome.
Yeah, Gary's been using it for a while, and I'm actually just getting trained at the moment, and I will be setting up the apiaries with this. Then it won't matter if I inspect or Gary inspects, because he can just come in and have a look at it all. So we can do lots of apiaries on one sign-up, eh?
Yes, indeed. It's going to be good.
So what's in it for our listeners, Gary?
Well, we're going to have a contest as well, because Hive Tracks have kindly given us a 1-year plan of Hive Tracks for free if you sign up for one of their 12-month plans. So there's going to be a contest, and what's the clue for the contest?
The question is, what is the name of the beekeeper that James talks about at the club?
Yes, so if you go to the show notes, which is kiwi.bz/106, you can click on the bonus offer button, and this entries must be in before the 10th of May 2017, 5 p.m. New Zealand time. So you've got a couple of weeks to do it.
Get in there, guys, and this is definitely something you should get into the draw for, or how will it be worked out?
We'll have a random draw when we do the Howard Blakenstein podcast, which is coming out in May.
Okay, that sounds fantastic.
And as a bonus, if you enter the contest, you get to join our fantastic free beekeeping newsletter.
Oh, that's a definite plus.
And it's free for everyone, so you win it anyway.
Yeah, so you're just a winner all round. Okay, so moving on.
Speaking of winners, special thanks this month to Lisa Morrissey. She's been supporting the Kiwimana Buzz for 6 months.
Yeah, and Lisa is a real lover of the bees. She's just so wonderful, and she shares information and she helps out, and she does a lot of work with the Auckland Bee Club, and yeah, what a trooper. We love you, Lisa.
Yes, indeed. If you like what we do and you want to support our efforts, you can go to kiwi.bz/banana and you can become one of our patrons.
That'll be awesome.
And welcome to the Kiwimana Buzz. I'm Gary, and that's Margaret.
Hey.
And we are beekeepers from the hills of Waitaki Ranges, and we talk about beekeeping, gardening, and political issues, and we interview great beekeepers from around the world, and that's what this is all about James.
Yes, definitely, and no tangents today. Just enjoy, guys, and if you really want to keep track of your hives, Hive Tracks.
Absolutely, and the show notes again are kiwi.bz/106. So thanks for listening to the show. We know life is busy, and we appreciate you've taken the time to join us today.
Yeah, absolutely, guys, so enjoy.
And an introduction, James Wilkes is a professor at Appalachian State University, and he's a backyard beekeeper. Along with Mark Henson, he developed the Hive Tracks software.
Hey, is he related to Jim Henson?
I don't think so.
The Muppet Man.
You'll have to ask him.
Ah.
They developed the Hive Tracks software, and that helps beekeepers keep records of their hive inspections And James lives in North Carolina with his wife and 8 children.
That'll keep you busy in itself.
Yes, and you'll hear about that in the show, and they all help with the bees and the
that's
operations.
Fantastic. That's awesome.
So, James, how was North Carolina?
Well, I'm looking out at snow flying around at the moment, but I'm also making plans for getting in the bees early next week, so that's the way it is.
Oh, okay.
I'm in the mountains of North Carolina, so I have a little different climate here.
Yeah, we're kind of in the hills as well, so we get a lot more rain here.
Yeah, we're kind of a microclimate in North Carolina.
Yeah, I saw some photos of your house. It looks really nice.
Oh yeah, it's very nice. A lot of people like to come here to visit. We're sort of a tourist area.
Oh, okay. Well, is it skiing? What's the attraction there?
Yeah, in the winter it's skiing, and in the summer we're in the 70s Fahrenheit, whereas half hour, 45 minutes away, it's in the 90s Fahrenheit and high humidity. So it's a nice break from summer heat. So we get it kind of all around. Both seasons, people like to be here rather than where they are.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Sounds good. Do you ski yourself?
Well, I don't have much time for that. My kids love it. They just went last week, but I do. Yeah, I ski and snowboard a little bit.
Cool. And you're a professor at how do you say that?
Yes, it's the pronunciation. The correct one that we claim is the correct one is Appalachian State.
Appalachian. Oh yeah.
Appalachian. A lot of people not from around here say Appalachian, and that's how we distinguish between people who know and don't. But yeah, Appalachian State is the university where I am a professor of computer science.
Oh, okay.
And at the moment, I'm chair of the department, which simply means that I have less teaching load and more administrative load to make sure the ship is going in the right direction.
Yeah.
And people have resources that they need. But I'm coming to the end of that period, I think. I've been doing that for 10 years now, which is more than a person ought to do it. But
oh no,
there's the challenge of finding your successor.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to find a worthy person. And you produced Hive Tracks with Mark Henson, is that right?
Yes. So so we released the software, the first version out in the wild in 2010, in August of 2010. And we had been working on it about a year and a half together before that, probably 2 years before that. So that would have been 2008. We were both kind of thinking in that direction and had similar ideas and intersected with one another and partnered up to try to see this come to life. And so that was in 2009. Did a prototype version kind of internally that we were looking at and playing with, and then released in 2010 a first version. And then we've gone through a couple of iterations and pretty significant changes since then. But that was the origins of the software.
No, I think it's improved a lot. I remember I first used it when we were trying to get in touch a while back, but I had a look last night. It looks really good.
Yeah, and I'm never satisfied. So I mean, what you see is that's in my head. That's 3 versions ago. I'm already way ahead in my dreaming side of it. But yeah, I agree. It's definitely much improved from what it was. And like I said, we have plenty of ideas for next steps and are kind of road mapping that right now to what the next steps are.
How did you get started in beekeeping, James?
My beginnings in beekeeping, I guess the roots were before I was born. My father started backyard beekeeping the year before I was born. He and a friend of his, for whatever reason, decided they wanted to try bees, and they lived in a small town in North Carolina. And my father was a school principal, so he was in education. so there's always kind of this element of learning new stuff, and he was kind of organic gardening and that kind of that mindset, and so the bees sort of fit into that for who he was, and so that's what I was born into. I had bees in my backyard growing up, so it was kind of part of life, back when beekeeping, at least in the U.S., was easier in the 1960s and 70s, and so that was my first exposure to it. I was never really, the beekeeper who had to worry about or take care of the bees at that time. And then I went off to school and did a lot of schooling in computer science, and actually I have a PhD in computer science, and started a family. And then in the year 2000, my dad and mom were moving the bees with them, and as part of that move, I got 2 hives that initiated me into beekeeping. So that was in the year 2000. And then I've just progressed from there, various stages of growth in that period, and a move for my family to a farm. We have in 2005 we moved to a farm or some land. You can call it a farm, but it was some land in an old farmhouse, and so I took my bees with me. And then in that context or that platform, I started keeping more, and we've just ramped up since then. And we actually have a farm business, I guess you'd say now. I still feel like I'm playing at it, but it does. And I mean, I never know enough to know what I'm doing, but we try stuff, and so we have a little farm business that all of us are involved in, and the honeybees are a big, kind of a third of that business. But Faith Mountain Farm, FAITH, is the name of that farm. And so we, a lot of our beekeeping is wrapped up in that, and it's honey production, and also have a little side business of leasing hives for people's yards. That's become kind of a popular model these days, and urban beekeeping kind of feeds into that as well. So.
Hive Tracks must help with that a lot then.
Yeah.
So you could sort of say beekeeping and education was kind of in your background with your father and both things as well.
Oh yeah, and that's what I've been in my whole life. Actually, both of my parents were in education, so I grew up in that kind of mindset, and that's what I set out to do in my career. When I went to university, was to be a math teacher. That was my goal, and then I discovered computer science. That was the early 80s. Computer science was just becoming a discipline within the last 10 years before that. And so I got interested in that at the university, and was still able to do my math piece that I wanted inside computer science, because that's really, computer science was born out of mathematics. And so I instead of teaching at the secondary level, which was my original goal, I just decided I'd try my hand at the higher level education. And actually, there's a funny story there. It was really, I changed my mind from secondary ed to university teaching, because you don't have to take education classes to teach at the university level. And I was scared to death of public speaking, and had to take a speech class that I didn't want to take. And so I changed my major and decided I would just study computer science and math and physics. And I probably wasn't clearly thinking, because obviously I still had to speak in front of people if I was going to go to the university level, but maybe I was just delaying the pain of that. But anyway, I got over that, obviously, fear. And and now I speak quite a bit, both in teaching, and I do talks at conferences and stuff. I was at the North Carolina State Conference last week, giving a talk, and I talked to bee clubs and things like that. So, but yeah, that whole education piece has always been part of my life, and I enjoy just helping people understand things. I think that's one of the things that I can do, that I've been gifted at, or however you want to phrase that. But that's one of my things I can do.
And how many hives do you run at your farm there?
So on the farm, we hover around 100. We've been up to, it fluctuates as you would expect 120. This past year, we were in the 70s and 80s. Some of it depends on the winter loss the year before, and some of it depends on how much funds we have to do replacements, or if we want to. We're learning a lot as we go, so we'll try our hand at splitting or raising queens and just trying different things. So a lot of variables obviously go into that number of increase, but around 100 is kind of our last 4 or 5 years, and I expect it's pushing the boundaries of what we can do in terms of just manpower and time and energy and funds to do it. Although my second oldest son is taking over a good chunk of the work on the bee side, and he's definitely in a growth mindset for the coming year. Our season's just getting ready to launch, and so he has some ideas of growth on the honey production side, and we kind of have a mixed use of our hives. Some of them are honey production, some are these hives that are leased out to people, which are not really particularly production hives. And in some of those instances, all the honey goes to the client, and so that doesn't really feed into our honey production side. But I expect we'll grow this year, but it won't be because of my effort. It'll be because of my children, which that was part of the vision for moving to where we are anyway, was for them to have opportunities to step into, and that fruit is growing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it must help having 8 kids because you can get them all involved.
Yeah. Yes. And that's kind of part of our whole vision for moving to this farm, and really viewing it as a platform for raising our family and giving them opportunities for responsibility and learning work ethic and just learning interesting things. There's so much to learn in that environment that you never run out, and again, help them to discover what their strengths are and interests, and then they can just kind of launch from there into whichever. Doesn't have to be with us, but wherever they want to go, but it gives them a place to learn those sorts of things.
Oh, no, it sounds like a magic place, so it looks really impressive. So, yeah, that's great. And so what excites you about beekeeping?
I think probably the just the fascination with them as critters, and they're just very interesting. There's certainly an intellectual side to it that I'm very curious type person, and your curiosity is never satisfied, I guess, with them, because they're always doing something, and there's always more to just kind of dig into and understand, and it's just, to be honest, when you're in the bee yard, it's a very nice place to be in terms of the rest of the craziness in the world. You kind of lose that, so there's just something wholesome and good to me about being in the bee yard. I get that same sense when I'm digging in the dirt or things like that as well, but that's certainly part of, in the beekeeping itself, is part of it. So that's probably the most attractive thing to me. No,
absolutely. I think you're right, and you've got to be, you really have to be present. I think that's the word.
Yeah, that's a good way. Yeah, it's all real right there. It's
yeah.
And for somebody who's, we're in this digital world, you and I, right now, right? That's
yeah.
Not real in some sense, but when you're in the bees, it's all there.
And so what motivated you and Mark to create Hive Tracks?
Yeah, so my motivation was somewhat selfish in that selfish and curious. Selfish in that I walked up to one of my hives. This was back when we were maybe 30 or 40 colonies, and I was kind of scratching my head, wondering what I had done at this hive, and I had this device in my pocket, cell phone, and I had this aha moment that, wow, I could really use an assist here, probably from technology, and kind of had this vision, if you will, it would be interesting if I could walk, and I thought this was totally feasible even at that time. I should be able to walk up to the hive with this device and, know which hive I'm standing beside, what was happening the last time I was here, what kind of things should I be looking for, really just helping me to be a better beekeeper by giving me information to feed into that process that we go through when we're looking at hives. There's the observational piece, but there's also memory you're bringing to that hive at that time of what happened before that I think adds a dimension that is helpful, in being a better beekeeper. And so that was really that was an aha moment for me, that I really felt like, one, it would be helpful to me as a beekeeper, so somewhat selfishly, but two, that, wow, this could be really useful, to beekeepers and help us to be better beekeepers individually. And Mark, kind of in parallel, had similar thoughts. I was coming at it from the computer science, professor, kind of conceptually understanding, what could happen. And then Mark is a professional software engineer, and he had just recently come into beekeeping. He was a new beekeeper at that time, with his first hives, and was in the beekeeping club, and that's actually how we got connected. He was telling somebody about his idea. They said, well, you need to talk to James. He's got this idea as well. And so we met up there. And so the motivation for me was out of my own need, that this would be really helpful to me, and it'd just be really a very interesting application of technology. And given my background in that and understanding, I thought I could kind of leverage that combined with the domain knowledge to come up with a good tool.
No, absolutely. And I think keeping hive records is really, really important. So what would you say to people out there that, why do you think it's so important to keep hive records?
What would I tell the ones why to keep records, or?
Yeah, like a lot of people kind of just, they either don't keep records or they just sort of have it in their memory.
Yeah, I think what I've discovered and interacting with my own users of the tool, and just beekeepers in general, who may not use the tool, and talking a lot about record keeping, the current position that I think I find most people in is, oh yeah, record keeping, that's an important piece of beekeeping. And, they teach it in the beekeeping classes, and the clubs talk about it, and, the bee magazines like Bee Culture in the U.S., Kim Flottam, and other in the leadership, they really, promote record keeping as a helpful tool, but we're all really horrible at it and just don't do a good job with it. And so I think we all kind of ascribe value to it, but don't do it very well. So that seems to be the current state, and so I'm trying to address that, and obviously with the tool itself, but also to help motivate individuals. It's more of a discipline, and if you can perceive the value in doing something, obviously you're gonna take action and do it. And in managing our hives, we're no different. If you're convinced that controlling varroa mites is something that, if you don't do, then you're going to be in trouble, then you'll do something, whether it's a chemical treatment or if it's a natural treatment or just integrated methods to do that. You're going to do something to address that issue. And I think with record keeping, we haven't come to the point yet that we're all convinced that wow, if I don't keep records, I'm going to be a bad beekeeper, and things aren't going to go well. But I think the more people keep records and see the value in it, that will overcome that barrier. There's some people that really do keep records. They really just like data and information, and in fact, they want more fields in the inspection sheet than I give them, or it's kind of crazy some of the things people want. But you're right. In general, it's I really would love to do that, but I'm just no good at it, or it takes too much time, or there's some barrier, or like for users of the tool, well, it's too hard, or there's too much data in there, things like that. So I'm trying to encourage people, just take kind of baby steps and just do the first thing. Just say, for example, record when you last inspected your hive. And I think that's actually a very valuable piece of information. And I think there's going to be data supporting how frequently you inspect your hives or keep tabs on them and your success as a beekeeper. That's kind of I would put that out as a hypothesis. But there's anecdotal evidence I'm running into both in my own experience and just from larger data that's out there that I think will begin to show some things like that, if you, just like with any, I imagine this is universal across beekeeping, from your side of the world to my side, about, asking a question about beekeeping, how frequently should I inspect my hives? How many answers are you going to get to that? I mean, there's a lot of philosophies driving, different answers to that, but what's best for the bees, and the beekeeper, and so if we can have some evidence to kind of back that up from the data side, that's another angle that I'm coming at this from, and but that's just a very simple example of knowing when you last went in your hive, and so that you can know when you probably should take a look again.
Yeah, definitely an advantage to see if the queen's laying properly and stuff like that. And I think also to keep track of varroa mites. And I think the other thing that's really important with record keeping is to make sure that if you try something different, like a lot of beekeepers love to experiment, right. If you try something different, what effect did it have on the bees? Did it make them produce more honey, less honey?
Right, right. And yeah, we're all experiment. I mean, we experiment all the time. I mean, I think it's one big experiment to me. They're just not very well controlled, experiments, which you can't do anyway with bees very well. So the other angle I'm beginning to take with this, or thought process, and you can give me your feedback on this as well. So part of the reason for keeping records would be kind of for your own good, right? That, like you say, checking queen rightness and disease presence, food stores, take any sort of characteristic of the hive that it's good to know, what's going on, what's the current state of your hive. That's the way I think of it. And how frequently do you need to check on that state in order to understand when something's deviating from what it should, and can you intervene and do something about it? The sooner you can find out, the better, right? Is the general idea for individual record keeping. And maybe that's the answer to your previous question of why it's good to keep records. But to me, there's a beekeeping community motivation that we've not really had the opportunity before. The technology that we have now to do, we've sort of done it informally. I assume you have beekeeping clubs in New Zealand that people go to, in areas that they meet regularly and talk about bees and give talks and things like that. And that's kind of where you understand the community state of the bees. But what I see with Hive Tracks and other record keeping tools, it's not exclusive to Hive Tracks, but we actually are thinking about this, is the community aspect of it. Like you say, if everybody's kind of doing their own little experiments, but if we dump everybody's data together, and look at collective data, I think there are real opportunities there for the beekeeping community to begin to understand the bees and beekeeper management practices, and which things work, which things don't, based on data, not based on, Bob came to the meeting tonight and said, his bees produce twice as much honey as everybody else's. Why is that? But if as a community we can put all our data together, I think we can begin to ask questions that historically we've not even been able to ask on the scale that we're able to now, and with data to back it up. So my messaging, I guess I'd say, for this coming year that I've in the US bee season is trying to motivate our users to be better at their record keeping individually for the good of the broader community, and just to raise the level of conversation and communication between beekeepers. One of the projects that we're rolling out is for beekeeping clubs. If we have Hive Tracks users in that club, then we collect all their information together, and say when you come into a bee meeting, you put a graphic up on the board, on the projector, that says, okay, this last month in the club, the club members, they were medicating, or they were harvesting honey, or they inspected this many times, or just the same kind of conversations that we have in those bee club meetings, but it's backed by data that's up on the screen where everybody can see it, and it kind of elevates the level of conversation. Does that make sense of kind of the vision there?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I logged in last night, and I could see on the right-hand side is the thing about saying what people in your area are doing.
Yeah, that's kind of the seed. That's it's not really baked yet, but that's a spot where we're trying to do that sort of thing, is based on Hive Tracks users' actions. We can discern these things that are going on in your bee neighborhood, if you will, and so that piece you see there is kind of for the whole Hive Tracks community. We have a similar this group mechanism that we're club mechanism that we have. If you look at groups in there, it's already there. So you can associate yourself, kind of like a private Facebook group or those kinds of things, that you can associate yourself more closely with other Hive Tracks users that you want to be associated with. And there's several applications of that. One is in mentoring. The other is in a club environment. And another one is and I saw you do some bee classes and bee schools, is in that environment where everybody in the bee school, has a Hive Tracks account. It kind of gets them off on the right foot with record keeping, but then they can also share in that group mechanism. You can share inspections and information about your beekeeping with one another, including a Google map of everybody in that group, their yards. So you could have a club or a bee school yard map, that's exclusive to that group. Nobody else can see it. And even within that, offer levels of sharing. You don't have to share in that. You have to opt in to share what you want to share. But that's kind of where the vision is going in that group side.
Yeah, no, that sounds good. I did see that. I didn't actually realize what it was. So that's interesting. Yeah, because or you could even do it with your friends. Like if you've got 10 beekeeping friends, and
any sort of it's a generic group, and you can define group however you want, and this mentor-mentee type thing, or the club, or the bee school, or just a bunch of beekeeping friends who want to share. Any kind of association works in that. You could have a kiwimana bee club, bee group on there, where you could look, all your customers and folks could kind of see what's going on with each other. But anyway, that's left to the imagination. Yeah,
I'll investigate that. That sounds really like a good idea. So yeah, if anyone out there is using Hive Tracks, get in touch. Maybe we can form a little group together. And so, you touched on motivating people back then, and just how do you convince non-tech people to use Hive Tracks?
Actually, I don't.
I'm trying to get some help here, James. With Margaret.
I want the tech people to use it first. Let's say that I would love for the non-tech people to use it, but I understand the difficulty in doing that. And first off, if a tech person isn't able to use it and use it well, then I have no hope of a non-technical person.
Yeah.
It being useful and helpful, and anything more than frustrating to them, and so I definitely would like for non-technical people to use it, and I think it actually is, even in its current state, is user-friendly enough. It's fairly intuitive, the way we have it set up. It's the way you're already thinking about bees anyway, so there is that going for it for the non-technical people. And but I would really like all the technical people, the newer beekeepers that are used to technology, to really begin to use it well. And I think what would happen is we would again begin to see some of this value, added value coming out of it when that happens. Because I am convinced if we start getting kind of legitimate data in there, then it's really going to multiply the value that everybody gets out of the tool. And we're in a position to do that, but first we have to get people using it and using it well. And don't want to dismiss the people that aren't technical, but there'll be more support and things like that, required for that group. Although I do have one idea that in particular, and I don't know if this is the way it is in New Zealand, but in the U.S., a lot of the beekeeping population is older, and they're not necessarily less technical, but that's generally the way it is, just because of the way history is, and so. But for that group, they probably also have either a child or a grandchild or a little neighbor kid or something who is very comfortable with technology and loves to be online. And in fact, their parents are probably always trying to get them offline to do, because they're doing, not useful things. I have kids, so and we're super connected at my farm. I live in a 100-year-old farmhouse, but I've got fiber that comes into the house. And so for these older non-technical types, we're always saying, oh, we need young people in beekeeping, and we need to get them interested. And so I say, well, have them be the ones that run your Hive Tracks side. Have them come to the bee yard with you and use their phone and enter the data. And to me, it's a way to hook in, the younger generation, the more technical folks. It's a way to introduce them to beekeeping. And I almost guarantee you, once you got them in the yard, technology or not, they're going to fall in love with the beekeeping side of it as well.
No, that's a good idea. It's kind of like, I don't know if you've heard of a sport called geocaching.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of a good way to get computer people
out into exactly. So this is the way to get them in the bee yard. Yeah,
before they realise that they're climbing up hills and stuff. It's a good trick, good little trick. Yeah, no, that's a good way to do it. Yeah, because we're trying to convince because I love Hive Tracks. I think it's great. It's just Margaret, who does most of our hives, she doesn't really use it, so. Right. Trying to convince her. She's more of a paper and memory kind of person.
And I totally get that, because I do plenty of that as well. But I'm trying to come up with the use cases, that like you say, show the value that she would say, oh yeah, well there is, I can get some good value out of doing this, and be willing to put the time and energy into it.
Yeah, well, she likes the inventory feature. Mm-hmm. You can actually print out all your current stocks.
And part of it's on my side is so it's part on the beekeeper's side of being disciplined and using it, and then I'm playing both sides of that. So on the software side, we're continually trying to improve user interface and usability and just make that less of a hurdle. And that's just a challenge in terms of software development and resources that go, because software development's not cheap either. And we're operating on pretty shoestring startup sweat equity type things here.
Yeah, it sounds like our podcast. Yeah, no, very very much true, very true. I mean, the thing is, you can also print out those hive inspection sheets, and you can just take them to the apiary, on a clipboard, and just fill it out when you're out there, and bring it home when you've got the chance, because So then it's easier, isn't it? I think it's easier.
Yeah, I'm not convinced of entering data in the yard. No. I am convinced of. I'll give you kind of a preview of my kind of goal is to have something that you can do in the bee yard that's super simple, maybe one button push that kind of, and we probably have that there now, in kind of, but to make it very clear that this is what you do is just essentially time stamping and weather, and what that consequently gets the weather and other things that go along with it, but kind of building you kind of, this is just the basic, I visited the yard, this is what I was doing, not much more than that. And if you then did those sheets in the yard, when you got back, you already have that kind of placeholder template there with some of the information already in it. But that's kind of where I'm going on from the software side, is to get something that you can do either in the yard, either right when you go in or when you come out, that's just a 1 or 2 button push to at least get the bare minimum in there.
And then you can go back later and fill in the details if you need to.
And if you don't go back later, then so what? You've still got something, right? You've got that timestamp, which I'm kind of leaning on as a kind of beginning point of useful data.
Yeah, no, I just, I don't know if you're familiar with Hillary from Beekeeping Like a Girl. She just wrote an article about why inspection notes are really important. And what she does is she records it on a phone and then goes home and inputs it into Hive Tracks. So that's another idea to do.
Right, and that's, my partner Mark, that was always kind of he liked that idea of doing the voice recording, and I've had several other users that are similar. They say I just do this audio memo essentially, and on our Android app we have that as one of the features that you can record an audio note that's attached to the inspection.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so then you can go back and transcribe it or whatever. So what was the lady's name that did that?
Oh, Hillary from beekeepinglikeagirl.com. She's just written an article about how she keeps hive notes and stuff. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, one thing that I thought about Hive Tracks is how do you get reminders when to inspect your hive next? I mean, I know it records when you last inspected it. Is there any way to actually get it to say, email me when it needs another inspection? Or
yes, we have a to-do list feature in there, and this is on the paid side too. And but there's a to-do list feature, and the to-do list, we have actually some automated to-do reminders that when you do an inspection, if you note that the queen is, something's wrong in the queen area, then it'll automatically create a to-do to check the queen status, or if you feed, to check the feed. And we also automatically give you a reminder to inspect in a certain time period. I think we give some variation on what you can do. You can do 2 weeks or whatever. But that to-do list, you get an email reminder of that to-do list.
Oh, okay.
That's one of the features, and you can schedule that daily or weekly. Kind of a weekly summary. That's a way of reminding when to do things. To me, it's not fully baked yet. It's not satisfying to me yet in terms of how clear it is. What's the next thing, and how urgent is it? Those sorts of kind of grades. The way my life is, I have so much flow of things going that it has to rise above just an email to really catch my attention, and so I'm trying to work on ways just to do that, to enhance that, I guess would be a way. But it's definitely there. I mean, you have reminders, and then when you first log in on the dashboard, it's got your most recent inspections, and it's got upcoming to-do list items, so they're featured there as well. And there's also a space on that dashboard that there's some hives that have never had inspections or haven't had it in a long time. There's a space for that as well. That whole dashboard is under a redo right now, and trying to come up with key metrics or key performance indicators or whatever kind of the software terms you want to use for your beekeeping to make it, like you say, and I'm saying is more visible of kind of what's the current state. I need to make some decisions about what I'm going to do based on this dashboard, and give me some help, from the software side of what needs to happen. And that's where we're supposed to be looking at mock-ups of that very like today or tomorrow. So that's in process.
Oh no, that sounds good. I mean, it'd just be good for printing out job sheets. If you've got staff, you can go, here you go, do these ones
right
now,
right.
Kind of thing. Yeah, no, that'd be good.
Yeah, and speaking of that, that's that kind of moves more toward if you have more hives, then that becomes more important. And so we've begun moving in the commercial beekeeper direction of providing software solutions to them. I view Hive Tracks as it is right now as for the hobbyist small beekeeper, just with the level of detail that we have and just the way you have to enter data and things like that. It's just not optimized, for the commercial market. Same information. I mean, you're looking at hives in yards and things like that at the commercial level, but just the scale and the workflow and things like that are different at the commercial level. But just as a heads up, we're moving in that, for your audience, we're moving in that direction with a prototype out, and have some partners in the commercial space that are helping us develop that. So that's kind of an exciting new direction for Hive Tracks. And for us in the middle, kind of in that, sideliner, more than that, we're kind of stretching Hive Tracks. I think there'll be some things in this new package that will be appealing to us as well.
Yeah. And any plans to add bench hives to the hive types?
Yeah, the whole we have lots of requests for either new hive types, especially international. We're obviously U.S. centric, and we do have requests for regional specific and different kinds of hives, and those are all we have those on our to-do list, which is very long, and requests list, and all those things are going to happen, just in terms of but it'll be in some sort of priority order. And for us to add a whole new type, especially to the Hive Tracks platform, we have this editor that goes along with it that you can move components around and all that. And that's a pretty heavy load in terms of development side to create that, especially if there's pretty big difference in the components and the hive types. So all that to say that it's a pretty big effort for us to introduce a completely new hive type, but it's we've done that before. In fact, we had a transition a couple of years ago where all we had was Langstroth, and then we went to Langstroth and 8-frame and Nuke and Top Bar. But certainly bench hives and other types are certainly possible.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds good. Yeah, I mean, it's got a bench hive's kind of like it's just like a long Langstroth, isn't it, really?
Yeah. In fact, they're becoming more popular even here. I was at our local club meeting just this week, and somebody there was going to do one of these horizontal Langstroth, which I guess is what a bench hive is.
Yeah, very similar. Yep.
And so it's definitely beekeepers are always trying new stuff. So
absolutely. Yep. And exactly. We've got all kinds here, so got to try them all.
Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, because I mean, Hive Tracks are a fantastic tool. It is actually free, isn't it, for the web version, so people can try it out.
Yeah, we've transitioned it'll coming up in May. We had our previous pricing model was we had a completely free version forever, and then you could go to a paid version, which we call Pro. And then last year we moved away from that and moved to a 30-day free trial model. And then at the end of the 30-day free trial, you either pay or you don't use it. And we grandfathered all the free people in. Most of our users are still in that free category. Obviously, from a business side, we're trying to get them to transition to the paid side. But yeah, so there's a 30-day free trial, and then after that, it's $1 a hive a month, with the most that you'll pay is $5 a month for unlimited hives. So we're trying to price it just so it's a no-brainer in terms of, it's worth $2 a month if I've got a couple of hives. And for us, we kind of need that just to help us to keep the lights on and the servers running and fixing bugs or adding new hive types, those sorts of things. So that's partly why we moved to that new model. But I think it's gonna be much better in the long run. And if you don't have any hives, and actually you can set up an account, have 0 hives, and then you don't get charged unless you actually start using it.
Well, I mean, it's not going to break the bank, is it? $2 or $3 a month.
Right. You sell things to beekeepers, so you know how some of them are.
Yeah. We'll talk about that offline. Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, no, it's all good. I think the thing about online stuff, it all costs money, doesn't it? You can't have a free website that's any good. You know,
Right.
You can't just
Exactly.
You can't rely on free.
And I've got lots of ideas, that I want to keep pressing and making this better and better, and go on over into the data analytics side and all of that. And obviously that's not free. And I think my goal is to help people be better beekeepers and have healthier, more productive hives. And that I think just a little. If everybody puts in a little bit, then we can. It'll be enough to get us there. And that's kind of my current position on that.
No, I mean, the thing is that if you don't get paid for your time and stuff, it's going to not encourage you to keep going. So I think it's really important for people to support people like you. That's
right.
what I think anyway.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think because the thing is that when something's free, it can go away, without notice, basically.
Right.
You look at things that Google have, Google Reader and stuff like that. They couldn't make money out of it, so they just canned it.
Right, and that's kind of they're when it's free, they're free to do that, and you're kind of left. If you liked it, then you're left in a bad spot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so if you like Hive Tracks, just get a pro account, really, eh? Absolutely. And we've got a reader's question here. This is from Mrs. T in the Waikato. She's going, when you have the harvest and you have the measurements of how much honey you brought in, she's wondering, can you have a part of a kilo, like using 1.5 or 2.5? I think at the moment you only can have a whole number.
Yeah, that's actually very interesting because my son, both my sons help out with Hive Tracks, and he just sent me a request this morning. He said, can we get partial weights on the harvest from the developers? And so that's fresh on the mind of the support side from my son emailing me this morning. And so I expect, yes, I'm not sure why we didn't put partial weights in there. I mean, it's just a different type of input is instead of an integer, you're going to get a real number. So yeah, that's definitely going to be fixed shortly.
Oh, cool. Oh, well, Mrs. T will be very happy.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yes, tell her it's on its way.
It's on its way. And we touched before about, recording stuff in the field. Any tips on how to get rid of propolis off your phone?
If you can tell me how to get propolis off of my jeans, I'll tell you how to get it off of your phone.
That's easy. That's easy, James. You buy a bee suit. Actually,
here's a couple of ideas. Actually, my daughter bakes for us. We have a baking business as part of our farm. And so, but she likes to be on her phone, in the process. So she just puts a little baggie over it. As long as it's thin enough, you can still operate it. And, then you just throw the plastic baggie away at the end when you're done. So there's one idea. Another idea I had, in the U.S., stock car racing is a big thing. And I've always had this idea. This is a great product idea if you want to run with this, Gary, and figure out somebody to produce it. So phones have a protective screen on them, right? A lot of them you can put, tempered glass or a case or something. So some sort of disposable, that's essentially what a plastic bag would be, but a disposable screen where you can just rip it off at the end of the day and throw it away. So like on these cars, they don't wash their windshields anymore in these races. They just peel off layers of this windshield to get to the clean one. And so that's my idea for the day. For your phone screen, cleaning it off, just have disposable screen covers. But yeah, it's a messy environment. I don't know if there's any way really.
Yeah, maybe go back to using the pen and paper. Print out the reports on your site, the blank ones, and just use them. Maybe that's what I've been doing. So.
Or you go through so many hives, and then you sit down, in the grass under the tree, take a break, and enter some data, and then, then go back, put your gloves back on, or.
Oh, I find I have to do it between hives. Yeah, if I did 3 in a row, they'd all merge into one, and I think, well, I really got to do them between hives.
Yeah. No, once you're past, they all merge together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless they're really mean hives, then you remember those.
Yeah. It's funny that, isn't it? You always remember the negative ones. It's like comments on your Facebook page, isn't it? The the ones that are the negative, you seem to remember more for some reason. No, it's crazy. Yeah, and do you have any funny beekeeping experiences you'd like to share?
Oh, I have lots of disasters, and like turning over hives, and when you're moving them, and because for our farm business, we make sourwood wood honey is one of the varietals that we go for, and so you have to move hives into a certain place to do that, and so we always have some moving of bees, and whenever you're moving bees, there's always something interesting that happens typically, so yeah, there's been some. You're carrying a hive with somebody, and then you sit it on the stand, and then it tips over, and the whole top supers flip off, and these are really productive hives moving into a flow. So you pick your strongest ones, so you can imagine the volume of bees that boil out of that.
Yeah.
So that we've had some of those. I also remember buying nukes one time from this guy, and he traveled from Florida up to New York on an interstate highway. So I drove about 4 or 5 hours from where I lived and met him on the side of the interstate at about 3 a.m. in the morning in a dark parking lot. And it felt like I was doing some drug deal or something, and transferring nukes from his horse trailer. And they weren't screened, they weren't netted. There was just bees everywhere, and it was pitch black. And you know how bees are in the dark, and they just crawl. It was, but there was no alternative. It was just one of those crazy. How did I get myself in this situation? Experiences, and but you just press through and then laugh about it. Yeah. Laugh about it now. So.
What decision did I make in the past to get me here?
Yeah. There was a wrong turn somewhere.
Exactly. Sometimes you don't see those turns until it's too late. But absolutely. Yeah. Oh no, that's fantastic. And so, what's your beekeeping plans for the season or for Hive Tracks? Yeah,
so beekeeping plans for the season. Like I said, my son is doing a good bit of that. We will. Even as early as next week, we're going to start evaluating some hives that we have in what we call our southern bee yard, that they already have maples blooming, and so they're on the early side of growth, and so we're going to evaluate them for splitting. And he wants to get into queen rearing. He took a workshop last summer, and so we hope to do splits and queen rearing and growing that way. But we're also going to be kind of on track to do our own honey production as part of our farm. And then layered in with that, I've also got a grant project that I work on through my university job and the USDA that's going to be setting up some test apiaries where we're going to be doing monthly sampling for Varroa and Nosema levels, and actually going to have hive scales, electronic hive scales in those yards, monitoring them. That's a whole nother conversation. If you want to have another session on the electronic hive monitoring space and what's going on there, that would be interesting. There's so much going on there, and that really complements what we do with Hive Tracks, and I think will be an integrated piece of what we do eventually, just because it makes sense. And then, so that's on the beekeeping side. On the Hive Track side, like I said, we are reworking our kind of landing page and dashboard when you come in to make those more useful to new beekeepers, and we're also working on this commercial side. We are piloting with some commercial beekeepers, both here in the U.S. and actually in Canada. And so my son, who's doing the beekeeping and doing the support for Hive Tracks, he just got back from a month working with a commercial beekeeper in Florida. And then he may be going up to Saskatchewan in Canada as well, to get boots on the ground feedback on how their operations work. He just works as a kind of a day laborer in those operations, but also gets feedback on how the software could be integrated. So we're really trying to be really smart about how we develop for that that space and create a product that really meets their needs and is helpful to them, and with ground level input into that. So there'll be a lot of energy going in that direction as well. And kind of layered on top, one more layer on top of that is we just got a new partner in the Hive Tracks who his expertise is in the data analytics side. So we're going to start looking in that direction of kind of what kind of data integrity do we need, and what kinds of things are we gathering that we can again leverage into intelligence for beekeepers, whether it's at the hobby level or for the commercial as well. So there's a lot going on.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm guessing the commercial product will be a bit different than the other one, but
yes, it will. But at the ground level, it's all the same.
Yeah, I mean that sounds great. I mean, with the hive, the hive weighing and stuff like that, that would be a really good topic to talk about too. So maybe we'll get you back on that about that. Yeah,
and especially in New Zealand, watching and some of my friends who are in the hive monitoring space. Certainly with the Manuka, kind of gold rush that's going on there, the value of a hive scale is that much more for them to monitor and know what's going on. The return on investment can happen really fast because of the value of the honey. So it's kind of it's pretty a high priced piece of hardware. The scales are still expensive for the normal person, but in that environment, it certainly creates a demand for it. And so there's a lot of energy and activity going in that direction that obviously is in our interest business wise to watch. And so, yeah, it's very interesting what's going on.
Yeah, because in a lot of those beekeepers, they actually helicopter in the hives into a Manuka rich thing.
Yeah, when I heard that, and I was going, my goodness, that's a lot of overhead. So there's a lot of profit in it for them to be able to do that. So obviously, from a business mindset, they're spending a lot of money to do that, and so they've got the resources to do that. And software to me is just another layer that will help add value to them. And the bigger companies there are already building their own systems. I talked to some of them I was able to go to Apimondia in South Korea and met 2 or 3 of the New Zealand larger operations, I guess. I don't know the space, and talk to them about software and the real big ones are obviously they have the resources to do it in-house, but there's a space in there where people are, they would like it and need it. And so there's market there for that.
Yeah. And there's a lot of companies here doing that weighing stuff as well, like monitoring stuff. There's a bunch in Christchurch that are doing it. Yeah, so you can get in touch with those guys. It'd be good. Yeah, the other concern for a lot of commercial guys here is hive theft.
Yes, and that's becoming more covered in the U.S. as well with the almond pollination that just went on. There was several news articles I saw come out about hive theft. There's such a concentration of hives during the almond pollination. There were 2 million hives in the Central Valley of California for the last month. So there's lots of opportunity combined with the high rental prices for the hives. It creates an environment where theft, is more tempting, similar to where you are. The value of the honey that's on the hives in the Manuka is high. So these are opportunistic as well. They know where to look.
Oh, absolutely. So. Yeah, I mean that's probably why a lot of people don't advertise their location on Hive Tracks, I guess.
Right. Well, the good thing on Hive Tracks is you have to opt in to show anything. So that's important distinction I think to make is your locations are private by default, so no one sees anything unless you choose to make it known. And the interesting flip side of that is about 25 to 30% of our users. We have about 24,000 yards that are being managed, and there's a global map that you can see on your account when you log in, and those are people who have opted in to show their yards. There's about 7,000 or 8,000 yards that are shown on that. So there's some people who don't care apparently about showing where the yards are.
Well, the good thing is you can show one yard and not all the others.
Yes, yeah, it's on a yard by yard basis. Yeah, you can share. There's a checkbox when you edit the yard. There's a checkbox that says privacy, and you can check it or not. Yeah. And so by default, all those are turned off.
Oh, that's good.
But if you wanted to show some yards and not others, it's flexible in that way.
No, I think it's a really great tool, and I wish you all the best of luck with it.
Well, I appreciate it.
Yeah,
I was looking at the stats on my back end for New Zealand, and right now we have 271 users in New Zealand. I'm looking at the data from the past 6 months or so, kind of your bee season.
Yeah,
and it certainly matches up with what there were a lot of treatments in September. It looks like, I guess, coming out of winter. There were some treatments going on, and then a lot of feedings during that same time. And when do you start treating going into your winter? Is that now? Or
now.
Within the next month or so?
Yeah, it's autumn now, so we need to start doing that. I mean, we're organically treating them, so those things take a lot longer.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll start this weekend probably.
But the data that I'm seeing kind of matches up with what you would expect. There's a lot of inspections showing in November, which is, as things are ramping up, you tend to watch closer, and it's earlier in the season, and you're more committed to record keeping early in the season than you are later.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're all enthusiastic in spring. That's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
So we've got a little bit of a foothold, there with your folks, and they seem to be, at least some are using it.
So the best way for people to get in touch with you probably be follow you on hivetracks.com, is that right?
Yeah, well, they could. So to get in touch with me is, you can email me. James@hivetracks.com is my direct email, and or we're on Facebook. You can follow us there. The thing I recommend most is just set up an account. There's no strings attached. First 30 days, that just get on there and try it out. We have a way to give us feedback. There's a tab at the bottom of the page for support if you got a problem, or questions if you want to ask about something. And this is an ongoing process. We view it as an evolving system that is just continuing to grow and get better. And the more people use it and kind of use it well, the more value all of us are going to get out of it. And like I said, as we're able to get resources, we pour it right back in to making the tools better. And we're really, really committed to that, and we'll continue to do that.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, and you've got a forum as well, haven't you, on your Hive Tracks page, so people can leave comments there and stuff like that. So
Right.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Or message us on Facebook. That's we monitor that as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll put all those links in the show notes. Well, thanks so much, James, for coming on today. It's been fantastic to talk to you.
You're very welcome. I enjoyed it.
And appreciate all you do for Hive Tracks and the beekeeping community. That's awesome.
Take care. Bye.
Wow, that was fantastic, wasn't it?
It was. Lots of great information there about how he does Hive Tracks and how his operation works. It's awesome.
And we've got some feedback from others who have been using it as well, which are on the show notes. So that's an awesome thing. So, we're not the only ones who are recommending it and use it. So, what's next, Gary?
Yeah, well, I think it's just a takeaway. It's just great how he keeps motivated and how he gets the kids involved in his business, with the farm. I think that's awesome.
It's fantastic, and that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Absolutely. And if you want to join, remember we talked about before, if you want to join the contest, it's kiwi.bz/106. You get 12 months for free. You go into the draw for that. And also, we also got an affiliate link for Hive Tracks. And if you want to help the kiwimana buzz out by joining through our affiliate link, there's a link on the show notes there. That'll be kiwi.bz/Hive Tracks. And that just helps us keep going, keep us producing this great content, Dale?
Yeah, absolutely. And anything helps. And this competition, you can go into the draw for it.
Yep, you can. The other thing is you can sign up for free for a fortnight, and you don't need to put a credit card in anymore. So that's awesome. So you can try it out, see what you think of it, and if you like it, then you can, then you can start paying. Or if you win the contest, you don't need to pay for the first 12 months.
Ooh, so it's a win-win.
Absolutely. And if you'd love to get the next show coming out soon, please subscribe to our show in your podcasting app.
Because that's where you'll find out.
Exactly. And we've got some instructions on the show notes about how to subscribe on iTunes and using your RSSs and your stitches. And
what's an RSS?
It's a way to subscribe to a podcast.
Oh, okay.
I will talk about that later in the bonus episode.
Cool.
Okay, well, thanks, guys, for joining us this week.
Yeah.
And I hope you join the contest because you've got to be in to win.
That's it. And keeping records, man, that's such a great way to see how your hives are doing and, learn a lot as you go along. So, be in to win, guys.
Absolutely. And we'll be back with episode 107 in a couple of weeks.
See ya.